Hey everybody, Matt Perry here, Revolution Realty, welcoming you to our very first ever Revolution Realty YouTube video. Now the purpose of these YouTube videos is to give you an overall perspective of the Boston real estate market to hopefully provide you enough information about a transaction that you might be thinking about, give you some ideas about Boston real estate, basically to give you enough background about the Boston real estate market. So much so that you'll probably feel like a real estate agent yourself, but you won't have to go out and spend the time and money and energy to go get your real estate license. It's this time of year at Christmas time that we kind of take a step back from the real estate market and we really try to closely examine what way the market has trended throughout the course of 12 months in 2014. And what did we learn about the market in 2014? Well, here's what we know. In Boston, there is certainly going to be a glut of apartment units on the market. Apartment inventory right now, and especially in the high points of 2014, reached all-time highs. Now that's good and bad. Now for the individual landlord, there could really be some problems on the horizon. The average price per square foot for a Boston rental unit right now is about $4 a square foot. That price is not going to hold up in the years coming forward. Now on the luxury side of things, they're really having to be creative in how they attract new potential tenants and clients. They offer, their offers include sometimes, in many cases, free broker's fee, and we'll touch on that in a second, and up to 2 months rent free, depending on the building and depending on the market time. Those are ridiculous rates, and in some cases are saving you up to 3 months rent. That's a huge, huge savings that's passed on to the consumer. How in the world is the general, just basic landlord off the street supposed to try to compete with those offerings? Well, number one, the luxury buildings are always going to have higher prices than the general basic landlord on the street. Now, maybe the lower end stuff in the luxury buildings might compete better off with the basic landlord. But in terms of what you're getting in overall amenities and perhaps even size, you really should weigh the pros and the cons in that. But with that said, there certainly seems to be a real estate bubble that's starting to form in Boston, but a bubble on the rental market, not so much on the sales side of it, but in the rental market. And that's going to be something to very closely keep our eye on in 2015. Now, we talked a little bit about the broker fee. Every time I work with a client, they always ask me, what's a broker fee? I've never heard of such a thing. Well, it's quite simple, really. In major cities like Boston, New York, and Chicago, and San Francisco, where the rental market is so competitive, the industry norm is to pay a real estate agent up to 1 month's fee for the services of using a real estate agent. That's been the industry norm for years, and I don't, frankly, and nobody else in the business, sees that changing moving forward. That's kind of why there are always going to be associated unavoidable fees in dealing with real estate. On the sales side of it, it's usually something like the home inspection that we always insist with our clients that they end up getting. On the rental side of it, it's the broker fee. Yeah, it's part of the business, but it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with the luxury apartment buildings, where some buildings are paying the fee. You might be able to get an individual landlord, depending on the situation, to pay the broker's fee too, and we always encourage our clients to put that kind of stuff in writing when they hand in an application. It's different when we're talking on the phone as a real estate agent to a landlord talking about a potential client, saying, yeah, our client would like you to pay the fee, and the landlord flat out says no. It's a different story when they have the offer in their hand and they're looking at it. Always make the offer, bottom line. Now let's talk about one more thing that we'll touch on here in this, and that's about the overall values in real estate in Boston right now. Now, I always tell my clients specifically that Boston real estate is cyclical. It goes through cycles. There are certain neighborhoods that are popular, and they rotate from year to year. A couple years ago, everybody wanted to live in South Boston. What happened in South Boston? Prices went sky high. Now they're starting to level off a little bit more. And that's kind of what we're seeing now in other areas. Right now, places like East Boston, Somerville, on the sales side of things, are immensely popular. That's slowly but surely driving up the prices in different areas. But we should not ever look at the macro level in terms of what's happening in the Boston real estate market. Instead, let's take a look at it from the Boston micro level, aka looking at it from the individual neighborhoods. Let's take, for example, the North End, where Revolution Realty is located. In the last 12 or so months of Boston real estate properties that were closed, there were 46 total transactions. There are 15 properties that are currently on the market, and 7 of those properties are getting ready to close. Now, the difference of those 15 properties that are still on the market, they've been on the market for an average of 60 or so days. And when I say properties, I'm talking multifamilies, condominiums, and single families. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but remember, we're just talking about the small North End neighborhood, so that's actually a fair amount of properties. Now, what does 60 days on the market mean? Well, 60 days on the market means that you might be able to start negotiating at a lower price than what is the overall asking price for the property. But I have, as we always say in real estate, it really depends on the property itself. So always make sure you're in a close dialogue about what you'd like to see with us in terms of submitting our first offer. And of course, we will be talking about what we think is fair and which way we think the market is going. We hope you enjoy this first YouTube video. Always a pleasure to be joining you. Check back to make sure you don't miss any of the movements, and we'll be back talking to you next time. But until then, enjoy yourselves.